Treasury Secretary Bessent, once again, high rates are crushing home building and driving up housing costs. A rate cut would spark new construction, ease pressure on families, and make housing more affordable for years to come. Let's give this a listen on CNBC.
That we could either go back to the 90s where we had good low inflationary growth, or back to President Trump's first term. But I think the real problem here is we're seeing some distributional aspects to the higher rates, as your earlier guest said, especially in housing and for lower income households.
Well, look, see, that is one issue that I haven't brought up recently. With regard to the interest rates, I think lowering interest rates might end up causing houses to probably by just a little bit to go up even more. I don't think lowering interest rates would send house values down, but I'm no economist. Maybe it actually will. But what I do know is that for them keeping mortgage interest rates up to 6.5, 7%, it's not exactly incentivizing anybody to want to sell their house and move into a new house, because a lot of people who have a mortgage, they've had it for more than 3, 4, 5 years, and they have a much better rate than 6 or 7%. So you really don't want to sell your house right now, because you're going to have to go move somewhere else. And if you're going to pick up another mortgage, you're going to get a much higher percentage rate than you did in the current mortgage that you have, despite the fact that your house is probably worth twice as much, if not even more, than it was when you first bought it. So yeah, there's a big incentive to sell it, because now you've got a shitload of equity, which you're going to end up throwing it away and then some if you move into another house with the same price because of the interest rate. So that's probably a lot of the reason why there's just not much movement in the housing market. But despite that, there's still a lot of houses for sale, especially in Florida. In 2021, across the entire state, there were only about 6,500 houses for sale across the entire state during the lowest period of inventory. Now, we're up over 250,000 houses that are for sale. Nobody's buying them because they're too expensive. Not only are they too expensive, the interest rates are too high. But honestly, I really think that they should just hold steady on the interest rates, if not maybe even bring them up a little higher, because there has to be some push somewhere, somehow, to bring down housing substantially. And look, it would suck for anybody who's got a house right now that's got a lot of equity, especially if you took out home equity loans and all of that. However, you got to think about the younger Americans. They're paying attention to politics. They're looking at the world around them, and they're not going to be too thrilled once they get out of high school or get out of college into the workforce and they realize the American dream, they can't have it, because nobody is going to be able to afford a $400,000 or $500,000 house. With the average American household income being around $77,000 a year, in order to afford the average priced house across America, you're going to have to make about $105,000 a year for your average household income in order to get qualified for a mortgage. It's not doable. It's like something like 78 or 80% of Americans, they flat out cannot afford a house. Like, a bank will tell them, you cannot afford this. It's going to cost more than 30% of your gross monthly or annual income, or however they break it down. But isn't that the rule of thumb? It has to be like 30% of your income or less that you have to contribute towards your mortgage per month for it to be reasonable. Otherwise, you're starting to walk into house poor territory. Plus the mortgage, or the cost of housing mortgage insurance or homeowners insurance is a lot higher, because the average house is so expensive now. A lot of the reason because these building materials are more expensive. So we got to figure out a way to bring down building material costs too, so that way they can build more houses, because they've been saying that we've been in a new housing shortage since 2008. We haven't been building new houses at the rate that we were pre-2008, which is also contributing to high house costs. Plus, there's the illegal immigrant situation. They all got to live somewhere. They're not all buying houses, but they are renting a lot, and that's contributing to high rent costs. And it's just a huge problem, and it's nice to finally have somebody mention it on the Republican side, because nobody really is. I heard Marjorie Taylor Greene last week mention it, how we got to figure out how to get housing down. Because housing, it's got to come down to like 200,000 on average. And it sounds laughable at this point, because it's been high for 3-4 years at this point, but still, it's got to happen somehow.
With high credit card debt. So we're seeing this big CapEx boom. Part of it's AI, part of it's the tax bill. And so CapEx is doing well, but households, home building is struggling. And you were asking me about interviewing Fed candidates, and there's the ability, everyone has the ability to look at the current data, but let's just think about if we keep constraining home building, then what kind of inflation does that create 1 or 2 years out? So, a cut here could facilitate a boom or a pickup in home building, which will keep prices down 1-2 years down the road.
I mean, I don't know, maybe, but I think it'd be marginal at best if they pick up house building. Plus, the way they build new houses these days, you think that they would be super solid structures because of all the red tape and all the regulations, and you have to have your light sockets every like 6 feet apart, and anyway, yeah, the construction, that all the regulations have been crazy to say the least, and you think that houses would be constructed better than ever because of that, but they're not. If you go over on TikTok and you look up new home inspection or new home inspector, you'll be pretty shocked to see how many shitty houses are being built today. All kinds of houses are just built atrociously bad. And I don't know if it's because they're using maybe illegal immigrant construction workers or if they're just using dirt cheap materials. I think that's got a lot to do with it, is because they're using bargain basement materials and they're trying to find the cheapest labor they possibly can so they can get the biggest profits that they can. But there was a story earlier this summer. There was a neighborhood, I want to say it was in Colorado, I think, actually, where it was probably a bow echo. It was a severe thunderstorm that moved in the area, and it brought like a 50 or 60 mile an hour wind gust. It was just a gust of wind. It wasn't a tornado or anything like that, but there was one neighborhood, it destroyed like a dozen new homes. They literally tipped over and they just collapsed, and they were still under construction, so the walls weren't there yet. So it was the wood frame for the most part, and then there was some siding or whatever. Like some of the houses looked like they were halfway built, but over a dozen of them just simply tipped over after the wood construction was already in place. It's like, yeah, dude, they're building these houses like shit, man. It's kind of scary, but I don't know, man. I'm not an expert on housing, so I don't have all the answers for that.